Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVS Audio in Roselle, New Jersey. This is part 2 of the video, Victor's bike. We are adding the HKI Mini DSP to the Boss Audio plug-and-play kit. So I'm going to show you how to easily install it, no splicing, no cutting, and it's going to greatly improve the sound of this entry-level kit. So we will be installing our NVS Audio T-harness for the HKI Mini, and we're going to be installing the HKI Mini onto the Boss Audio kit. So our T-harness comes with a TR4 built in right here, so it delays the turn on so you don't get a pop. And then these are our front speaker wires and our delayed remote turn on. So T-harness pre-wired into the DSP. So now I'm going to take you over to the bike, and I'm going to do it slowly because it's going to be a little confusing, but this is what we're going to do. So we have the entire Boss Audio setup, already set up. Now the way the Boss Audio setup gets signal is from the factory speaker pods. That gives you signal in, and then it takes signal out and resends it to the pods. So now we're going to start with the input connector. So you notice here, we're in the first plug. This is getting signal from the factory radio through the speaker plug connectors. We're going to need to disconnect that on both sides. And now we're going to be running RCA into the amplifier, so we're going to take out this harness and completely disregard it. This harness is coming out. So now the speaker connectors that we just disconnected from that harness get plugged into the factory pod again. But the amplifier output for channels 1 and 2, here we're going to disconnect that, and these wires go into the factory speaker pod connections. So we're going to disconnect that, and we're going to set that aside. So these are 2 harnesses that came with the Boss Audio setup that we don't need. That's the input harness, and that's the output harness. We're going to set those aside. Now, this is very important. We're going to plug everything back to factory. So this is the factory speaker harness, and that's the factory speaker plug. They go back together. Then on this side, same thing, factory. So now we have the speaker pods and speaker harness back to factory. Now we're going to go ahead and install our T harness. So to feed signal into the DSP is our T harness. So here's our T harness. We're going to plug it in. So now that's feeding signal directly into the DSP. You notice the DSP just powered on, so we have our power, ground, remote. TR4 gives us delay remote turn on. So now with our T harness, we have signal into the DSP. See that? So I'm going to unplug it one more time to make sure we're on the same page. So there's our T harness disconnected. Radio's back to factory. So now we're going to unplug the factory radio, plug in our T harness, plug the radio back in. Now our DSP will power on, and it now has input signal. Now we're going to take the other set of RCA connectors that came in the box with the Boss Audio kit. See how his RCA inputs? That's going to go to channel 1, 2, 3, and 4 of our DSP, and it's going to plug directly into the amp. Now remember, the amplifier has 4 inputs. The first 2 are high-level inputs. The second 2 are low-level inputs. So we were in the first 2 because we're going high-level from the radio. Now we're going into the DSP, out of the DSP, low-level. So first connector goes into the 3rd slot. Second connector, which is rears, goes into the 4th slot. So now that takes care of the output of the DSP. So input of the DSP, output of the DSP into the amplifier. Now, since we removed the speaker connector from here, wait for stop, Rob. All right, one more thing. In the Boss kit, we have remote turn on coming from the accessory plug. So we have it plugged into the accessory plug, and then it creates remote turn on whenever the bike turns on. This is no longer needed. We're going to remove that, and we're going to use the remote output from our harness. That way, the amplifier turns on after the radio turns on and after the DSP turns on. This is a delayed remote turn on that comes with our harness. So now we removed this one and we ran ours into the remote turn-on connector right here. So now in our harness, you're going to take this plug that comes in the Boss kit, and the colors from that plug match the colors of our output harness. So there's your white black, your white, your gray, and your gray black. So now the output of our T harness is going to go to the amplifier. So there's the rears. The very first one is the fronts. Now what this is doing is it's taking output from the Boss audio amp, running through the factory T harness, running through the factory speaker pod connectors, and into the speaker pods. So it's actually sending signal through here, and we're reusing the factory wires and the factory connectors. So it is a truly plug and play. So we have RCAs into the RCA inputs. We have signal directly from the radio into the DSP. We have delayed remote turn on, power and ground. And then we have the amplifier output feeding through the harness. Install is completely done. Since it's a street glide, the DSP will fit perfectly here. Then after you get it all the way in, you could screw it into the side of the pod or make an L bracket and screw it in right here. Either way. So you can either cut this off and screw it into the pod, or if you don't want to modify the pod, you could bend this tab over and screw it in here, or you can Velcro it. Whatever you want to do, there's plenty of space in there to mount it however you'd like. So now we're going to go ahead and tune it and show you the difference between DSP tune and the regular plug and play tune. Ended up with a much flatter response with much more low end. So as you can see, we made the bike sound way better by adding a DSP. Now let's play some music. So I'm pretty sure it was hard to tell from the video, but even my employees were surprised at the amount that the sound changed. We got more bass, we got more control, the highs sounded better. Just by adding a DSP, same exact speakers, same song, we were able to flatten out and get a much better response on the RTA. So the tweeters weren't as aggressive, we got them to blend. Since we had more control, we were able to play the 6 mines lower and get a decent amount of mid bass. It got a little bit louder, but it just sounded a whole lot better. You didn't gain a lot of volume, but you just gained more clarity. The numbers don't lie. You can see it on the screen. You had more control. It sounded better. We were able to control what the speaker was doing. We were able to set the time alignment, tighten up the mid bass. It's just it's a lot of value. So showed you how easy it was. You add a DSP and a T harness, so you figure you're at $500, $450, and you can easily upgrade any system. So you saw what a change we made with just an entry-level 4-speaker single amp system by just adding DSP. So if you're riding, you have a 4-speaker setup, no clearer example of what we just did here. It's definitely value. DSP, you get more control. You just make it sound better. So hope this helps.